Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada. Om Shri Swami Narayana Namaha Shri Sajananda Swami Maharajaya Namaha Shri Sadgurubhyo Namaha Dhyanamulam Gurur Murti Mantramulam Gurur Vakyam Pujamulam Gurur Padam Mokshamulam Gurur Kripa Gunatita Vaksharam Brahma Bhagavan Purushottamah Jano Janannidam Satyam Muchyate Bhavabandhanat. Welcome to SwaminarayanSpirituality.com. This is Sachin Karnik. This is the fourth talk on the link between Advaita Vedanta and Vachanamrut of Sri Sajanand Swami. First of all, I offer my prayers, respects, prostrations to all the great sages in the past, all the great sages today, and to everyone who is interested in this subject of self-realization, God-realization. So, to continue from the last discussion on this, today, Sachin here, that's me, I'm going to try to proceed along a little different way to further clarify the actual linkage between Advaita Vedanta and the teachers of Advaita Vedanta, the books of Advaita Vedanta, the path of Advaita Vedanta, with the teachings, the path, and the Vedantic vision of Sri Sajanand Swami Maharaj. So, first of all, let's begin with our day-to-day experience. Our day-to-day experience is in the waking state, dream state, and deep sleep. We can all agree, I believe, that that is the case. We are awake. When we are awake, we experience an outside world. We experience through the five senses called Jnana Indriya, this external world. When any human being asks the question, what is the source of this external world? Where did the external world come from? Who is it that is experiencing the external world? And where is the cause of the external world? So keep this in mind. Jeev, Jagat, Jagdishwar. Three things to keep in mind. Jeev meaning who am I? Jagat is what is this external world that we feel is external. We are in the world. This is our experience. Our day-to-day experience. And then the curiosity. Where is the cause, or what is the cause of this manifestation that we see through our senses, through our ears, nose, tongue, etc. This is how inquiry begins. So, in the history of philosophical inquiry, meditative inquiry, and in the history of the Upanishads, the rishis of ancient times, just like today, they asked us these same questions. Now, if we are to ask these questions, how are we going to find the answer? So, first of all, the answer could be an intellectual theory. That's what philosophy is. Usually Western philosophy is more on intellectual musings and theories and ideologies and different concepts that the mind can generate about who am I, what is the world, etc. So that is one approach to take, and that is also a great approach. It leads to areas such as philosophy of mind that are present and quite active today in research and in philosophical exploration. Now, in the Eastern traditions, in the history of Sanatana Dharma, it's not a particular religion, it is not a particular group, it is a research project. Let's put it that way. It is the unfolding of greater and greater truth. Truth is only one, but it can unfold to higher and higher level. And that is really where this link with the teachings of Sajanand Swami come into play. That the unfolding of truth is so beautiful because truth is not a static phenomena. It is not static as the things that are present in the material world. That, like a stone, it seems to be a static thing, and a stone is a stone. You can understand it, analyze it, touch it. It's things like that, weigh it and whatnot. It's quite quantitative, and then it will remain like that. There's measurement there. There is a finitude. There is certain limitation there. But that is not the case when we begin to probe into the question of who am I. We can probe into the question of who am I because we have the ability to probe. If we do not have the ability to probe, how we can probe? So that ability to probe into questions is curiosity. It is the intellectual, mental power that is within us, within the brain and the mind, that allows us to ask questions and is allowing us to develop ourselves further, to modify the external world, which is what we see. The modification of the external world is due to the higher intellectual function, and human beings dominate the entire world. They dominate the whole range of species, not because of physical strength, because of a bigger brain, because of greater ability to dominate through weapons and through different restrictions and other ways of modifying the external world. Okay, I think we can see that that's the case. Now, the most fascinating question is, who am I? And this is really where the Upanishadic message comes into play. The essence of the Upanishadic message is that you are a witnessing consciousness to this entire phenomena that you see. You're a witness to all of the phenomena outside, all of the names and forms outside. You are a witness to your own body. You are a witness to your own mind. So that witness, the Upanishads call the Atma or Atman. The other names are there, Sakshi, Drashta, like this. Other names are there also. So the Upanishadic masters are called Upanishadic masters because they had mastered the mind and the body in such a way, they had retuned the function of the mind and the body so that the engulfment into the external world through desire is transformed into a natural abiding in the self. I hope that point is clear. Most of us, even in our life today, we are engulfed in the experience of the external world. We are lost in that with endless attachments and different types of bondages that are constantly going on. And they recognize this. So they wanted to go beyond all of the limitations in relationships, limitations in the external experience, limitations due to desire. They wanted to transcend all that to discover who am I. And this is a massive discovery. So the ancient approach, the Vedic approach, the Sanatana approach is to sit silently with yourself. This is the approach. Because what else can you do? There's quite a bit that can be done. But it ultimately leads to silence, Shanti. Every Veda mantra ends with Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti means peace of mind, stability of mind, clarity of mind, silence of the mind. This much is in our understanding. We can see that that's the case. Now, if we go further in that silence, the rishis stayed with that silence deliberately. They recognized the function of thought and emotion, of sensation, and said, wait a minute, all of that is going on, but we want to stabilize that. It is the stability of the mind that they accomplished. They devised many approaches. They worked with what was available. What was available was the body. The breath is available. Nature is available. Food is available. Water is available. And contact with other human beings, other animals, other plants, that is available. That's what they had to work with. They didn't know where they came from. They were born into this world. They said, this world is in front of us. We are here. So what is all this about? Where did this all come about? So they, first of all, went into nature and absolutely harmonized with nature. This was the very first accomplishment in the Vedic tradition. And in harmony with nature, they saw the interconnected, interdependent harmony of nature. And with that interconnected interdependence, they developed tremendous respect for nature. Through that respect for nature came natural harmony and silence, and in that silence they began to meditate, dhyana. At this point, there is no concept of incarnations of God or temples or scriptures or anything like that. They are just sitting with what is available to them. And we can also try this. Why not? You will see what happens. If we try to do what they did, the first difficulty that will come is that our mind is jumping in 1,000 different places. It is getting bored. It is getting tired. The content of consciousness, the content of psychological, mental consciousness is then perceived. And most human beings are just stuck in that content. So they evolved out of that content and allowed that content to settle down. And at some point in their further development, by conserving all their energies, by keeping their body, mind in sync, they discovered who they are. And what they found was that who they are, they called this self the Atma. It is Sat Chit Ananda. They called it this way, that it is truth. It is what is actually real. So Satyam means that which is real versus unreal. So as soon as the glimpse of the Atma occurred, the world disappears. Hence, the Jagat that we see, the external world, is no longer even real for that individual. When the Atmic consciousness awakens, when one is in the experiential state of the Atma, it's a Samadhi state. The world disappears. The world is no longer there. Even the body is not an awareness. None of those things are an awareness. And then the mind becomes active again, and then the world snaps back into place. So they saw this was happening, this snapping back and forth. That's why in the last several talks, I've talked about Nirvikalpa and Savikalpa. And I'm trying to go slowly so that there isn't confusion about all of this. The snapping back of the world into consciousness, where did that come from? If one is realized the Atma, that I am this consciousness, I am the truth, I have realized the Atma, there is this, what is the Atma? It is a non-physical entity. If you want to say entity. Again, we're using language. Language is not going to reach there. Even the Upanishad says, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasa. Language cannot describe what is the Atma. But we have to try somehow, so we use some language. So the consciousness, the Atma is aware, or Atma is awareness. Awareness of all external phenomena. So when the rishis came out of Samadhi, they have a remembrance of the Atmic state, of Atma Bhav or Atma Sakshatkar. They have realization, I am this Satchidananda Brahma, that's who I am. I am this infinite reality. The infinity is what is known as the Brahman, without bound. So there is an infinite reality, and that infinite reality is real. That is Satyam, Anantam, Jnanam. That Satyam, Anantam, Brahma. Ananta means beyond any end. They came upon that as a oneness of themselves, that I am this spiritual being which is the same as that infinite Akshara Brahma. Now, this all sounds very interesting. This all sounds like very fascinating. And if somebody tries to meditate, the chances of realizing this are next to zero. The reason behind it is because each human being is overrun by the samsara. If we try to meditate inside ourselves, there is so much conditioning and there's so much programming of the samsara. How are you going to get rid of that? How can you go beyond it? The rishis went into extreme states of sadhana. These are not ordinary individuals. They went into the caves, into the mountains for years and years, cut off from everything to discover what is the Atma. So these words that we are using, we may use them rather lightly, but this is so tremendous that they have done that phenomenal research work to discover what is the Atma. And in their discovery, then in that discovery over time, the Upanishads came into being. People came to these rishis, they asked questions. They saw the rishis as highly evolved beings, brimming with enlightenment, brimming with divinity, brimming with a type of freedom that is unseen. This recognition of great sages is again and again mentioned in Vachanamrutam by Sajanand Swami. Because Vachanamrut is a summary, it is an extract, it is the essence of this 10,000 plus year tradition. It is not contradictory to anything that has come before it. So, the recognition of an enlightened being is huge. Why is that huge? Why is that necessary? Because they are in some different, higher, beautiful state of realization. And we want that. We would want that. So this person has found something extraordinary. Wow, I want to find it also. So the various individuals would go and sit at the feet of these gurus, these teachers, and that is called Upanishad. And in sitting at their feet, these mantras were written. The truths were spoken in the Sanskrit language, beautifully spoken. And that is where the tradition began. So, the discovery of this infinite substratum, as I mentioned in the last talk, in Vachanamrut, this is called Nirakar Akshara Brahma. Formless Akshar. Formless, why? Because the forms we see in the external world, these forms come and go. So these forms are part of Mahamaya, part of Prakriti. Even in Advaita Vedanta, the notion of Maya is there. The teachers in Advaita from the ancient times till today developed this concept of Maya. They said that no, Maya is some kind of an obstruction that is hindering the actual perception. So let's call it Maya. It's a name that was chosen, somehow developed. There's a lot of history in that also. So for example, if I see a tree, I see a tree. I'm calling it a tree. But that's a name given, there's a form in my perception. But if I can see it without the name and the form or without any kind of a background noise, background conditioning, then all that is what the Vedantic teachers would say is that you are seeing Brahman. There's no tree actually there. That's what they say. That is just a reflection. It's like an iceberg in the ocean. The iceberg is nothing but the water only, or a wave in the ocean. If we say the wave is there, wave is there. But it is the ocean in a different form, that's all. So the Brahmanda, the universes, the realm of Prakriti known to our senses, those are waves on the oceanic substratum of consciousness. Taranga, it is called. So is that true? I mean, is that actually the case? One would have to discover that. It's not simply a matter of believing it and just saying that, okay, I believe this, or argue about it, or what. No, it's not that. As evolution occurs, as per Vachanamrut, into the Brahman, into Akhanda Vritti, Garada Pratham, first Vachanamrut. As evolution occurs further, one begins to realize the Atma. One begins to realize the Akshara Brahma. One begins to see all of this. It comes to the mind, and then it comes within the mind, it's beyond the mind also. Because there are senses, there is an inner vision beyond simply these physical senses. So, if we now go further along this exploration, we find that Sajanand Swami, he is in that lineage and tradition of Bhagavan with Sakar form. That Nirakar, Akshara Brahma, yes, it's there. But his guru also, Ramanand Swami, was very, very much interested in seeing that form of Bhagavan. Now in Advaita Vedanta, this is a very, almost like they would consider it as a limitation, even a desire of this kind, to see something beyond you, to have a divine body. They would probably say that is just the human mind trying to continue its individuality. It wants to live with God, it wants to see God, it wants to see God as beyond itself. It wants to maintain its separateness and its individuality. In essence, it wants to maintain its egotistical sense. This is one of the criticisms through Advaita on the concept of God also, on the concept of Parabrahma beyond the Brahman. They said that this is just something imaginary because you don't want to extinguish yourself. You don't want to go beyond the ego. You don't want to go into that state of impersonal Brahman. You want to maintain your separateness and identity, and you want to do all that. That is why you're inventing a Parabrahman. This is a criticism. There are quite a few on the Advaitic teaching have stated this. Now, what is the response to this, or what is my perspective? See, psychologically that may be true. If you look at it psychologically, there is a desire in every human being to maintain and sustain themselves. But when Sajanand Swami is talking about the Nirakar Atma is given a Brahmamaya Sharira by the grace of Paramatma, that is not sustaining of the ego or anything like that. Because you cannot get any Brahma. It's not possible for the Atma to obtain or to be given a body that is made out of the Brahman itself to see the Parabrahman. This is a highly esoteric and metaphysical idea. There's no ego in that, nor is there any desire to sustain oneself. If those desires are there, one will be inside Prakriti with different physical bodies. That's all that will happen. So yes, to not maintain that individuality the way we are maintaining it with raga and dvesha and all that is, yes, of course, that has to go. But the Nirakar Atma is given a divine body, Divya Sharir, by Paramatma. This is the teaching in Vachanamrut, that there is that Aksharatit Paramatma who is giving by Krupa, by grace, to the Atma, who is a devotee, a bhakta of that Paramatma, this divine body. Now, Advaitic teachers will say this is all nonsense. They will say, what you're talking about? There's only that one Brahman. That's it. Nothing else is there. You realize that one Brahman. You realize who you are. That's it. It's infinite. There's no you with a body and all this thing. What humbug is all this? They would say that there's no such thing. This is all some kind of a projection, some imagination, or even you're out of the body, but you yourself are creating God and these bodies. You are creating all that thing. There's nobody except you, so you're the one who's imagining all that, creating all that in that divine state also. And this debate goes on. This debate has been going on for thousands of years. So Sachin here is not interested in the debate. The debate is not the point. It's a matter of experience and anubhav. Sajanand Swami is also not interested in this debate. This is my perspective. Although there were so many debates going on at that time called Shastrarth. But how far does that one take? Even if you convince somebody one way or another, so what? Human beings as they are, trapped in this manifested world, and then they're usually filled with ego and going back and forth with their egos, and that's the end of it all. It has no meaning. That Shastrarth doesn't have any spiritual significance. It has significance to some extent if someone is trying to be open to learn and to understand different perspectives. Yes, to that extent it's okay. As far as realization goes, it doesn't really hold much water at all. Usually just the egos are battling with each other. That's all that's going on. So Maharaj is not talking about that kind of thing. What Maharaj is saying is that, Maharaj meaning Shriji Maharaj, what he's saying is that in the Vedantic discovery, as in the history of Vedanta, the various acharyas that came, the various sages who came, they had glimpses of something beyond that Nirakara Brahman, a form of Paramatma that is called Aksharatit Paramatma, that is called Bhagwan, that is called God, not that Saguna Brahman that Advaita talks about. So that is the Mool Swarupa, that is Parabrahman, Parabrahma. So they had so that they went into the Nirakara Akshara, but somehow that revelation occurred that there is something beyond that infinite consciousness. This is in the Gita also, but it depends how you interpret these verses. So, what does this mean for us here? I mean, this all sounds very interesting. What does it mean for us here? The practical and the most straightforward meaning for all of us, whatever approach one is taking, is that bhakti ought to be done towards God. There's nothing to lose in this. What is there to lose? If someone says that, okay, Bhagwan is with form, and I am the devotee of God, I am at the feet of God, and whatever state of realization may come, including the level of the Atmic realization, still that feeling is maintained that I am at the feet of God. And that feeling is not destroyed. That upasana is not destroyed, is what Sajanand Swami is advocating. Now, if you don't want to accept, if somebody doesn't want to accept that, that's up to them. Then in Garuda Pratham 63, it is written that one who is worshipping God as a nirakar, or as an avlamban, just as a support, and reaches the state of the Atma, that goes into the Nirakara Brahma Shushupti, and there's no you left to experience anything. There is the one without a second. There is just the infinite consciousness of the Akshara Brahma. That's it. If that is the destination, then there's no you left to experience. Meaning the Atma that is now experiencing the world, it will not also experience Paramatma in the real state. In the released state. And somebody will say in Advaita, see, the point in Advaita is that the Advaitic teachers are totally against duality. They don't want to have a Paramatma beyond that oneness. This is the whole concept of Advaita. So that is what it is, but it depends on where we are in our realization. Maharaj was at that time speaking to individuals who had extremely high level of realization, like, for example, Atmanand Swami, or he was called Bhayatmanand Swami. He had realization of the Atma. There's a complete realization of the Atma, Samyak Atma Darshan. But Sriji Maharaj still insisted that he should do bhakti, he should listen to all the Leela Charitras, keep the glory of all the devotees in mind. Why is that? Why is there emphasis placed by Sajanand Swami and all the Vaishnava acharyas like Sanatan Goswami and so many others? yeah, in the whole ISKCON tradition, in the other Vallabhacharya tradition, you will find that there is tremendous emphasis on bhakti, on the devotees, on keeping contact with the devotees, on keeping contact with the Vaishnavas. Even Maharaj said in Vachanamrut, Vaishnav amari naat jat. So I want to stay with the devotees all the time. Why is that? How does that connect with Advaita Vedanta? Advaita Vedanta said this is foolishness. Everything is just one. Where's the issue of staying with devotees and dancing and singing and doing bhajans and all that? It's all illusion. Ultimately, Advaita will say this is all just intermediate thing you're doing to get to that Advaitic state. Okay, I mean there are people who are saying this, and there are so many who have traveled along that path. The danger in such a thing, psychologically, is that the human ego will get hold of Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi is a state of realization, but the human ego is wanting to become that oceanic consciousness. It cannot. That is an expansion of the ego in the wrong way. And I have met some individuals in my life who unfortunately have been stuck in that ego reaction. And they just, and they have trouble in the samsara. They cannot get along with people. I said, where is your Vedanta then? If you're having arguments and fights and problems and all kinds of divisiveness going on using Vedantic ideas, that is not Vedanta at all. But anyway, this is the point, that here practically Sajanand Swami is saying that maintain bhakti towards Sakara Paramatma with form. Whichever way you want to think of God, the form that God has a form. Bhagwan ka Sakar Swarup. This is teaching of Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya talked about Bhagwan Narayan as the ultimate reality. It is teaching of so many. Vallabhacharya talked about Sri Krishna Bhagwan as the ultimate reality. You see, so the form of God that is real, that is Sanatan, this is the teaching. You make of it of what you want. Now the difficulty that comes in our human intellect is that, wait a minute. Okay, let's say for example I take the image of Sri Krishna. Okay, it's a stone. Somebody has made it into a murti. You can do some mantras and pran pratishtha, but somebody will say it's all just a illusion. It's all some kind of a fabricated concept you're developing in your own mind. You're creating the idea of God in your mind and worshipping that idea through that stone image. How ridiculous is this? This is what people on the Advaita, not everybody on Advaita, but many have said this, and there's quite a few other individuals who talk about these things this way. So, if that's the case, then such a person, the path for such a person is not a bhakti path. That person just needs to be in nature and do meditation, abstract meditation and all that. If one cannot be convinced of bhakti and the Sakara Swarup of Paramatma, rather than criticizing all that and getting into debates and getting into raga dvesha, that person can follow a different path. And that path is of just being with nature, being in silence, doing dialogues and reflecting on the mind, and it's that type of sadhana basically, which is done like in the Krishnamurti dialogue groups. It's done like that. And even J. Krishnamurti is a prime example who just obliterated all the tradition and sadhanas and mantras and gurus and scriptures and completely wiped it all out, basically, and said just sit with yourself and discover who you are and discover the truth. So you can try that. If that appeals to you or to anybody else, you can try and see where that leads. That is also there. But the fact is that Sajanand Swami's teaching is, of course, incorporating sitting in silence and being with yourself. Those ideas are there also. Ekantavas and all that Maharaj himself went through all that. But he is emphasizing more on bhakti and devotees and Bhagwan. That Bhagwan exists. This is his perspective. So psychologically, from where we are, to believe in Sakar form of God with a tremendous faith in that form, what does it do? It promotes psychological stability and it removes tension. it removes all the tension directly. If Sachin is sitting saying, no, wait a minute, I'm just going to abstractly try to discover what is the truth, I have no anchor and there's no support anywhere. So then the mind can actually, it'll sink back into the material world, or if it does evolve into that unknown space, into that silent space and all that, it will be tremendously afraid of going inside there, because it has to drop all of that, what it knows, and it's very difficult. Not only is it difficult, it is scary, and it might even damage the brain. So we don't know what will happen if all the conditioning and everything just falls away. It's possible that there could be brain damage because of that. We don't know. Because you're talking about the brain cells changing radically. You're going into a space of meditation where there is completely the unknown. What will happen to the brain in that? You see, so in the life of J. Krishnamurti, you will see in his notebook, he again and again, he used to wake up shouting and screaming and yelling, and all those terrible things were going on because his mind cannot touch that infinity. That intense power is coming into his mind, and he cannot handle it. You read the notebook objectively. Anybody who is a student of J. Krishnamurti should really understand this. And that goes back to the Gita, as I mentioned before, that klesho dhikataras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukham. So that the difficulty of touching that avyakta, that which is imperishable, without upasana of Bhagavan, is intense. Now, again, people who believe that, no, this is all projection and tradition is causing problems and all that, divisive. Yes, that is true. There is no doubt traditions have caused lots of divisive problems. But we have to go beyond all that to discover the truth. Sajanand Swami is, in one sense, bringing this Sakar Upasana as a tremendous support for the mind. So the mind remains integrated, whole and stable, and the feelings and emotions all get synchronized very well. And then the bhakta continues in bhakti further, and Jnana and Vairagya are used as a support. Jnana and Vairagya are protectors of bhakti. So this is good. So I'll give you my opinion. My opinion is simply this is very good for one's health. Dharma, Jnana, Vairagya, with that foundation of these three, one continues bhakti. It's very good for your mind, very good for the brain. It's not going to wind up getting into like abstract reality. That is unknown type of very strange type of experiences, if you go in that direction, you can try and see what happens. But in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, that somebody tries to do that without any support of gurus, of God, of upasana, of bhakti, that there could be damage to the brain. Actual damage to the neurons within the brain, because they will break apart. They can potentially break apart because of the conditioning is then thrown away. So if you go beyond your conditioning, that means that there is a new energy that is dawning in the brain. Then you are not there anymore. The conditioning of the brain, the relationship structures we have, and everything that we know, if it falls away, how is that different from someone who has brain trauma? You see that they also have amnesia. They cannot recognize anybody. They cannot. So this is called Kundalini syndrome, by the way. Even what J. Krishnamurti is going through, in my opinion, is called Kundalini syndrome. That's why he couldn't deal with reading any scriptures or anything like that. The reason behind that is simply because he is touching upon that abstract, that nirakar, or whatever you want to call it, that higher consciousness. He's touching upon it without any support for the mind. So then of course he's going to wind up shouting and screaming and all that, because your energy is pouring through. Of course there's a benediction. Of course there is blessing and all that. But at the same time, that mind has no support of any kind. You see, so again, this requires a deeper study of J. Krishnamurti's teachings to understand this point. It's a great thing to understand, because it goes to show why Sajanand Swami is talking about Sakar Upasana. Sakar Upasana, one of the biggest reasons is that the mind can gain the proper support it needs. If you don't have any support, the mind will just wind up in nothingness, or it will break apart. And if it breaks apart, it's a serious problem. So it can lead to psychiatric disorders like dissociation or depersonalization disorder. How is that different from someone who has a psychiatric problem? People thought Ramakrishna Paramans was a psychiatric patient also, because he was so far gone into samadhi. He had this support of the Kalika Mata, but he's gone so far in that Nirvikalpa Samadhi that people thought he was mad. He's a crazy person. How do you differentiate between a crazy, mad people who are in these inpatient psychiatric hospitals and these great sages? You see, you will not be able to tell the difference actually, but there is obviously a world of difference. That's what we believe. But until you go into that, you don't know. Because when the mind is no longer stuck in this material world, like the ancient rishis, then they wind up in samadhi. You see, the yogis are sitting for even thousands of years. Then the body might be there, body might not be there. That is written like that. They're just sitting in meditation. They're not eating anything. They're not drinking. They're not even in the body consciousness. They're outside of that. But is all of that kind of thing even possible for us? And the answer is no. It's not practical. It's not possible. You try to do it, you can wind up in serious trouble. So that is not a advisable thing to do. That is why Sajanand Swami Maharaj, he has emphasized Sakar Upasana. It is going to take you all the way to the end without creating damage to the mind, to the body, without creating problems like Kundalini syndrome. Look it up on the internet. I'm not making these things up. The people gyrate and they have all kinds of difficulties. In fact, there are gurus today who awaken energies in people in different ways, but they don't have contact with the gurus in the right where people are stuck. They're stuck in between somewhere. So to solve all these problems, the most straightforward way, the best solution is Sakar Nishta. Sakar Upasana. It solves all these problems because you are not taking the burden of your enlightenment. What you are doing is you are asking God to bless you to give you the enlightenment, moksha, whatever you're looking for. All you are doing is you are doing bhajan, kirtan, bhakti, seva, manan, chintan, and living in this life beautifully with the devotees, with everybody in this life, without raga, dvesha, and living a very balanced, healthy, harmonious, fantastic life filled with bhakti. Because when bhakti is there, our emotions are naturally going to evolve beautifully. This is my experience and opinion. Now, anybody can do what they want with all this, but my intention in these recordings is to present Sajanand Swami's perspective and why he taught what he taught. Because there are very serious problems for those individuals who try to go beyond the mind without any support. Very serious problems. Yeah, it sounds very nice with the Upanishads and the different teachers like Krishnamurti or different teachers who are talking about all this unknown reality, whatever it is. But you try to do it and see the trouble that comes. You see? Now, simply because, what is that trouble? That trouble is that the mind has no support, an anchor. There's no adhar. In the Gujarati language, adhar is not there. But you can try if you are somebody interested in that kind of thing only, which there are certain individuals. See what happens out of it, and if that balancing is not there, it'll be a problem. Even someone like J. Krishnamurti used to keep his body as healthy as possible. He was not a foolish person, So he used to keep his body very healthy. He used to do certain yogic exercises. He used to listen even to Sanskrit mantras. But he would never use any of that as a doorway into the higher reality, because his approach is via negativa approach, and I won't go into all that right now. All I'm trying to emphasize is why Sajanand Swami Maharaj is emphasizing Sakar Nishta. There is great benefit in this. There's no harm in it. There's no difficulty in it. There is so much beautiful relationship with Bhagavan that you have a place to go to say, oh Lord, you take care of me. I don't know anything. You are everything for me. Mirabai did this. Tulsidas Ji did this. Ramakrishna Paramans did this with Mata Kalika. Sajanand Swami in terms of his sadhana and in terms of his childhood and as Nilkantvarani, he did all of that with the Shaligram of Bhagavan Vishnu. towards Lord Krishna, he had done that. It's to show what is that devotion. Every Acharya in the Vaishnava Parampara has done this. You see, even in Christianity, the whole idea is to go to the feet of Jesus. What is wrong with that? Nothing. From my perspective, it is very, very good, very healthy, very, very much stabilizing. It doesn't break the mind apart with Kundalini syndrome and strange states of consciousness and things like that. Strange mysticism. No, it doesn't do that, because you wind up in that mystical reality without any support, without any feeling that God exists. Then one can wind up in some different types of very strange phenomena can occur. The dimensions can open that you don't want to open. You see, so there are hellish regions, there are ghostly regions. This is all written in the scriptures. There are terrible things that are out of one's consciousness that might come into consciousness also. Anything is possible. You see, so you don't know what will happen. That is why to open that door out of the mind is not advisable as such, because because everything will open at that point, and then you will not be there, and who knows what happens to you. The body and the mind can be significantly imbalanced because of that. To prevent all that from happening, the belief in God, the belief is nishtha, belief in a Paraswarup, in God that is beyond me, that is very good for the mind. It doesn't matter if God exists or not. That's a matter of debate and anubhav. That's a different subject. But the fact is that believing and anchoring with faith is going to be helpful. Now, I'm assuming there's not blind faith. I'm assuming there's no divisiveness. There's no rag and dvesh towards others with different faiths like that. All that thing has to go. Otherwise, that's a problem that we have in this world, unfortunately. Right? So, Vachanamrut is spoken for sadhaks, for bhaktas, for mumukshus who are serious about enlightenment. That is why Maharaj has emphasized again and again Bhagwan Nu Swarup, Bhagwan Nu Pratyaksha Swarup, Bhagwan Nu Pragat Swarup. Why he is emphasizing this? So that the mind can gain the proper evolution and it can slowly, carefully evolve into that anubhav state. Indriya Antakaran Anubhav Pochanu. There's a Vachanamrut that explains this. That yes, the Indriya Antakaran can touch upon that higher reality with the adequate purification and preparation. So in many ways, bhakti is a preparation to realize the Atma. And the Atmic realization is a preparation to serve the Paramatma. So the Brahma Bhutaha Prasannatma Na Shochati Na Kangshati Samaha Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. So with this, I want to stop here today. Let me just say one more thing before I do stop. That this is a very, very difficult subject to contemplate on or to explain. Sachin here, by the grace of the Gurus, is trying whatever Sachin can try. This is a very esoteric and tricky subject to explain. All I would suggest is that go based on experience. Yes, every great teacher has great things to say. But be careful about when you go into any particular path, what is your experience in that? And in the ideal world, you can take something from everyone and build your own path. If you want, you can do that. You can always follow the path Sajanand Swami has shown of Dharma, Gnan, Vairagya and Bhakti. If you do that, if someone does that, you have everything. You have all of the teaching of Advaita Vedanta, you have all the teaching of psychology, you have all the teaching of J. Krishnamurti, you have all the teaching of Buddhism, you have all the teaching of the Bible, you have everything, all the 18 Puranas, all the 4 Vedas, everything is in these 4 principles of Dharma, Gnan, Vairagya, Bhakti. They complement each other. Maharaj himself has said, Ek bijani apeksha che. They support each other, they enhance each other. How beautiful. What more could we want? Then life becomes beautiful. It becomes fantastic. There is nothing but love, 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 and only love. All right, so with that, I will stop here for today. We'll continue on this further. Many, many prayers to all of you and for blessings. Thank you.